Pubbin.
Oops. There we go. Thank you. Did he send you this stuff too?
Yeah, but I have two of those things layered together. It's keyboard scales,
Yeah.
separate from the beats. And that's perfectly. Just wondering if that's an accident or not.
No, I guess you can. I like those too.
Yeah. Is this some screwy stuff in here?
Ah, come on. What the hell? Come on. Gotcha. Hi, Dad. I'm okay. How are you? Yes, still am. Yeah. Today, this afternoon, and this evening, I'm at my friend Leslie's. We just came back from dinner. We've been recording since the mid-afternoon, so we took a break, and then we're coming back and gonna finish up. Oh, you know I was gonna do that. Okay. Well, you're feeling okay? Okay, good. Okay. Yeah, believe me, I hear back home it's ice and that's what I heard. Uh, okay. I love you too, Dad. Bye bye.
What's he watching?
He's not watching. He just told me. He just said that it's real crappy back home.
Oh, in Evanston?
Yeah, because I heard it was. People are complaining about that, but it's okay. Let him complain.
Yeah, I gotta like keep myself from complaining about the rain because it's way better than the below zero bullshit.
Yeah. I'll take. Okay. Okay, I'll take that. There we go. Oh. Okay. Yeah.
Gotta sterilize that mic.
Got a Gigi story about a week. Oh, this is nice.
You know Wayne Kuzi?
Of course I do.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got a good Gigi Allen story.
He's
The
got a
West
new
Side.
project called Wood Zeppelin.
Oh yeah, he told me about that.
My brother is in it.
Oh yeah. Isn't your brother in Corcoran's blues band too? Plays bass.
Yeah, going down south.
Propaganda Machine. I could be wrong.
Yeah.
Okay. I know that they have
Ha.
jam together though. So I remember that this Gigi story's pretty great. Like in the '80s, he went to the West Side and Gigi's wearing cowboy boots and he's naked, drinking a bottle of Jack on stage.
Yeah.
And just kind of like yelling at everybody, and it ended in a riot where like the cops came and everyone had to run.
Yeah.
It was probably an unauthorized show.
That's funny.
Ready?
Yep. It's hilarious.
I see the show on the road.
Yeah. Oh, I'll show it to you afterwards. Let's you want to come around and take a look at this real quick. What was it?
What is it?
It's a picture Michael sent me. He said, Mom says hello. Well, you know the story, I guess, right?
Yeah.
She said she'd come back as a Beatles song. Or come back as Beatles. Okay. So we're gonna do this one. Oops. Oops, as they say. I think you say that. So, this is one. It's a story that I call Tripping the Trip Fantastic.
Alright, ready?
Yep.
Okay.
This is story I called Tripping the Trip Fantastic. Goodbyes were always difficult between Mom and I whenever we saw each other in the living years, and this time was no exception. I had just spent a full week visiting places in and around Arizona with Uncle Mickey, who had also been invited by Mom to come and visit with her. Prior to that, the two of them had been corresponding by postal letter. Mom never owned a computer, though late in life she did express some interest in getting one. It was sometime in midsummer of 2016, or perhaps earlier, when I planned this trip to see Mom and Dad. Never got along so well with Dad as I did with Mom. That was fairly obvious. I was supposed to go to San Antonio, Texas to spend time with the girl. Of course, that never panned out. But then, I was always a will-o'-the-wisp, so to speak, an adventurer's adventurer. Although it never looks like it to more adventurous types, like, say, Uncle Mickey, who is a true world traveler, 64 countries in 68 years. But he's another tale for another time. I traveled at my expense, always locally, national, or internationally. Locally, it's always been an adventure riding the Chicago Transit Authority, or CTA Transit System, PACE. The Suburban Regional Transit System fares better. Not as dicey as CTA or adventurous, quieter, but my preferred method of travel is Metro. Faster, comfortable, sleek, and always, or nearly always on time. Expensive though, versus the CTA or PACE, but worth it just the same. When it comes to real traveling though, I prefer train to planes and bus and even cars, except if it's a regional tour. Although I've had some and many numerous crazy adventures on the bus, some I've written about previously, it's not my favorite. It's not my favorite mode of, despite the cheapness of the travel mode. It's the dregs of society that always take the bus, and it's something I'm just not interested in. Regionally, perhaps, but not just regularly. Planes, I disdain immensely unless I have to fly overseas. Amtrak, on the other hand, is my favorite mode of travel. Anyway, anytime, anyhow, however I could, however I can, however I would do, and I have many, many times. So, after the failed trip to Texas, a state I truly disdain, I retooled the trip to go to Arizona instead. My destination, Tucson, to meet Uncle Mickey so we could both together go by car to visit my parents, who at that time were still living in Scottsdale. Since Mom's death in June 2017, Dad has since moved to a living situation in Tempe. Months passed until late December, just after my 55th birthday, when things began to get real. Less than a month away, when I'd get to see Mom in person after almost 6 years. I'd wanted to visit her, but she told me to save money, especially being in grad school for 3 years, and that traveling might be difficult financially. Almost now in hindsight, wish I didn't listen to her and gone to see Mom and Dad on my own intuition, but you can't change time despite personal historical revisionism abound. Come January 24th, 2017, I was excited to get out of my studio. I still felt as if I was out on house arrest, meaning that I was living under some sort of an iron fist from my landlord. The year before, it had been exceedingly difficult. Canceling shows so I could get my life in order, cleaning up, or rather decluttering my studio. That in itself has been a long, long project that I will finish up one day, but always, I think, and most likely, continue to work on. But the landlord, oh, the fucking landlord, briefly explaining, had me under an unwritten illegal move. He wanted to know for months where I was heading out, where I was going to, how long I would be gone, and when I was returning. All really none of his fucking business. I remember canceling 2 major shows and having to worry constantly if I still had a home or not. And everyone else went along with it, on board with the executive board, so to speak. I was the only one who complained about not being able to travel freely. Come and go as I please, an invisible ball and chain carried with me every place I went, texting him back and forth with my plans. None of his fucking concern. Nazi Germany pre-World War II in my eyes. But I suppose, in a way, it was good to have someone that cares about you, even under those conditions. But it wore me down. Tired of being under lock and key, tired of being an invisible slave who couldn't move or go anywhere without having to tell someone. I absolutely hated it. To get around it, I invented excuses in the event he did see me leaving. Escapism was a new action verb in my vocabulary, so when it did come time to leave in cases like this, I always had a backup plan. Mom always told me he doesn't really care. All he cares about is the rent. I believe here and now she was right, or correct, rather. I left my studio early, just as I always did on this morning, meaning I'd stay up all night packing and repacking, rethinking what would fit, what I was going to bring for Mom and Dad, and for that matter, Uncle Mickey, and what I would be taking back, more trinkets and clothing that I most likely didn't need, but I would always pick up something from Mexican imports in Old Town, Scottsdale, a place where Mom and I would often travel to during my trip to see them. It's the kind of place that would sell things like my red hemp hoodie and 3-faced baby papooses and rubber tomahawks and stuff like that. Just as a side note, arriving at the station, I waited for what seemed like hours, talking to people, talking to friends and Mom on the phone, thinking about random things until came time to board, find a seat, and join the ride. I had my regular supply of sandwiches and bottles of water to last me until at least I reached Tucson, my appointed round of landing. The train ride was uneventful, at least until we arrived in San Antonio, Texas for a 4-hour layover as the train waited for another train, the Sunset Limited, to arrive and hook themselves up with our train, thereby making it a much bigger train, something like 11 coaches long. In San Antonio, I made some new friends. We hung out at the Alamo, drank ourselves silly at Pat O'Brien's, and eventually staggered back to the train and had fitful sleeps in our coach seats, until each one of our final destinations had arrived. The guy who sat back at me was terribly hungry, and so I forked over one of my 2-day-old turkey and cheese sandwiches. That was all right as far as I was concerned. I love sharing and giving back, because it's tenfold as far as I was concerned. The guy was very grateful and offered to get me strip club girls real cheap and good bud in return for the meal. I told him I'd think about it and went on my way. Uncle Mickey and Tucson wasn't all that far away now. Once I got off the train, I didn't know how I was going to get to the airport. After all, I was flat broke, and trying to figure things out was difficult. I was still getting used to Uber and depending less on taxi cabs, which are far more expensive than anything. Somehow, I managed to slip into an Uber with a Japanese couple who unknowingly paid for my ride all the way up to the Tucson airport. I didn't say too much as the driver seemed suspicious of me. It was better that way. Mostly, we talked about the gem show that was in town and the train ride, which was a 2-day trip. He didn't seem to want to talk about much else, and that was fine to me. It was a long ride to the airport, and I was hungry anyhow. My sandwiches were all gone, and just pretty much left with kind nutritional bars and bottles of purified water. Got there and waited for Uncle Mickey to arrive. It seemed like forever, but he did finally show up, and off we went in search of our host for the night, who fed us kindly in the moment at the hotel he worked at with coffee, tea, oranges, and a Snickers bar for me. Uncle Mickey doesn't eat candy bars, at least not in front of me, which I save for later. He took us for food sometime after he got off work, and we drove in this virtually empty car with all our luggage in the trunk, which he told us not to lock the doors. It was a small 4-door that he said he'd bought used since it was a drug runner's car. At first I didn't believe him, but then later I did. Of course, that possibility never dawned on me as we drove on down the highway toward Nogales, the city he lived in, and I gazed upon the stars and fell asleep briefly. Eventually we got there and we were put up in another home not far from him with a couple of crazy cats. I slept in one bed on a relatively quiet space, while Uncle Mickey slept in another bed somewhere in the home. Outside and a little further away, we could see a portion of a steel wall separating the towns of Nogales, Arizona, and Nogales, Mexico. I'd never been to Mexico before and hoped I would have the chance when we returned from Scottsdale. The week we have with my parents is pretty wonderful, though Dad is pretty cranky the first night I am there, and that's very upsetting. So Mom fixes it. I'm already used to the mere fact, at this point in my life, that Dad and I will never be friends. That would change, of course, within less than 5 months. We spend some nights together at dinner talking. Sometimes we are late in coming in, sometimes we aren't. Mostly because, meaning Uncle Mickey and me, are exploring the surrounding area between Scottsdale and elsewhere. We go lots of places, including Surprise, Arizona, where we explore the mountains. Uncle Mickey thankfully can guide the car, but not always in the right fashion because he joyrides half the time, scaring me, thinking we will go over the side of the mountains, which happens to be at times between a 4,000 to 8,000 foot drop. He tells me to guide us using the map, while I just want to get the fuck down from the mountains. I'm afraid of heights, but it's a little hard to explain this to him, especially when we are already elevated 25,000 feet. I can see how frozen I was looking back on it as we were coming down, and I noticed at some point one of the roads is washed out from a previous flood. He drives through anyway, since we can't really go back the way we came, and besides, sunset is beginning. As we are driving down, it is beginning to rain lightly, and then I see, and thankfully breathe a long sigh of relief. A regular road, and then I laugh because I see 3 paramedic trucks flying up the same rugged, wet mountain road we just came down from in single file. I shake my head and smile broadly. February 1st is one of the most difficult days of my life. I have to say goodbye to Mom, thinking I will see her again. I tell her that I will come back in the fall when the desert is cooler. Mom has never liked goodbyes, though we have spoken on the phone several times during the course of the 16 years she has lived out there. In-person goodbyes are a lot worse. Of all the in-person goodbyes I've had with Mom, this was the worst of them all. In fact, they don't or never got any easier. We are both crying. Uncle Mickey and Dad must be kindred spirits because they are both rushing our goodbye ceremony rather rapidly. Come on! We have to get going. I love you, Mom, I called to her as we head out the door. It would be the last time I would ever see her alive. We drove back to Nogales. That night our host and a friend of his take me across the border to Nogales, Mexico, where we get some great fresh tacos. After that, we stop into an open mic where a few Mexican musicians back me as I launch into a punk rock version of Gigi Allen's Bite You Scum. I also throat sang Michael Moore Weasel Squeezer, an homage to Uncle Mickey. The musicians are thunderstruck and have me throat sing a few more tunes into their iPhone, which serves as their field recorder. Then it's onto a darkened street for a little more fun. Then back to the border, where I produce my passport to the border agent patrol, whose smiles seems to get bigger and broader when I tell him where I'm from. And just like that, he lets me back into America. A a restless night of sleep, early morning. Call up and I'm dropped off the Tucson Amtrak station, and sadly I say goodbye to my new friend Ivan and Uncle Mickey. As I wait in line for the train to arrive and begin boarding, an older woman breaks bread with me and offers me half of the breakfast burrito she failed to eat. This seems like a good start to what I hope will be an uneventful trip with no difficulties. And then it begins. And then it begins. The Texas Eagle pulls into the station early, a rarity, and I am assigned to my seat, struggle with my heavy, bulky black wheeled bag and make my way to my seat. Being first in line does have its advantages, as I take the same set of seats I rode in on the way up. It's not always like that, but when it does happen, I take full advantage. They are my favorite kind of seats too, the middle of the train. Makes it easier to run down the stairs to grab sandwiches and water from my bag, go to the lounge and brush my teeth, stuff like that. Also, there's a decent window seat view. We pull out of Tucson and chug through the whole of Arizona and New Mexico. There's a small state for you, and we finally reach Texas. And like I said before, I hate Texas mostly because I've had so many bad experiences in that state, and also, like Montana, it takes forever to get through, virtually 10 to 12 hours by train in order to get to the next transfer point of San Antonio, and then it's additionally another 6 to 12 in order to get through that, just to get to Arkansas, and that's really no exaggeration. Like most train rides home, I just want to sleep. It's a long ride I have ahead of me, and having only slept a few hours back in the guest house in Arizona, I just want to get as much rest as possible before we hit San Antonio and then Chicago. The train rolls along. I have dinner consisting of turkey and cheese sandwiches, bottled water, yellow crackers, and a protein bar. My augmented full-scale meal for the next few days. I read a little, look out the window, call friends, call mom, tell her where we are, and go to sleep. It's 1:10 a.m. when we arrive in Del Rio, Texas, Friday, February 2nd, Groundhog's Day to be exact. The train is supposed to make a 2-minute stop and then puff on ahead to San Antonio within a matter of a couple of hours to wait for the Sunset Limited, hook those passenger cars up to our train, and then fly home, getting us back to Chicago the next day. That doesn't happen. I peek out the window and I notice people are standing on the platform smoking. Smoking? This isn't a smoking stop, as I whip out my paper Amtrak schedule and scan the times. We're supposed to be gone, I think. And then I look at the window again. More people are piling out of the train. Lots of cigarette butts decorating the platform. I wait and scratch my unwashed hair as the conductor is rambling through the train and tells every fourth passenger that the apparent trouble as to why the train can't move is because a wooden train trestle has been burnt to a crisp 20 miles out, leaving us and several freight trains virtually stranded. The color temporarily drains from my face, and I think, shit, I think I'm not going to get home on time. I can't get to Dallas on time and meet Cousin Bones. And then that stops, and I think of it as one great adventure. Be positive in light of the situation. End of part 1. No, I know that was fucking long. Yeah, that's long. I'm gonna have to cut that one down and read the other short ones instead to him. That's a long one.
Who are you reading that to?
Well, what's that?
You said you're gonna
Yeah, I was gonna read that tomorrow, but that's too long.
Yeah,
20
it's
minutes.
20 minutes long. I mean, it has its moments, but it's, in my opinion, more of like a diary thing.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Okay, I can do one more.
It's short.
Oh, yeah, very short. You know this one, actually. It's called I'm Sorry, I'll Buy You a Snack Shop. You know that one? I think you do. It's actually an older one, but sorry. It yeah. When you say Smollett staged that hate crime thing. The guy from Empire, he staged that hate crime thing. The black guy who said he was attacked by a couple Nigerian guys, a couple black guys. Those guys were extras, actually. They were actors. And they staged it with them. So it was a fake act. It was a fake attack.
It's stupid.
He was getting written off the show.
Let me know when you're ready.
Just take some water. No. I think you've heard this one before. It's called, I'm Sorry, I'll Buy You a Snack Shop. You've heard this one.
Ready?
Yep. I'm sorry, I'll buy you a snack shop. You are my nation, tall, soft, stupid, and cheap. I pledge alienation to the fag of the United Snakes of non-existent America, a passport to freedom. Oh, say can you see the freedoms we call free, a blind spot to those who seek an answer to make amends with their own personal God. God is love, the voice of disarray. How do you come to terms with living in America today? An America filled with troubles, and to the Republicans for whom it stands by the dawn's early light. The power brokers mapping out merger deals for Y2K. More moms and pops swallowed up day after day. One nation under the almighty dollar, making love to material wealth, oblivious to the theory regarding love and art. Profiteering love while ruining faith, thereby creating stability, a sense of responsibility. We've come this far. Stickomythia, so much empty banter. Living thy American dream, the multicultural images of voices never heard, the hatred of races, the confessions and confusion of places coming apart at the seams, the instant corporateness of modesty, John Q. Public's disregard for honesty, television, internet, masturbating our vows. Do you take this electric beam to have and to hold, conformity unrolled in the master plan of eternity without blinking? No one can tell me without stumbling where the great war unfurls. Just send troops and lots of them. Everything is bleeding. The master says it's fine. The mass destruction of population, certification of swirling holocausts, slave mongers in ancient times, lives beraggled. How many worlds can we fell with a single stroke? How do we sleep so well? 1999, the end of the century, 99 years of blood on its hands and can't wring itself dry. I'm still living my dreams in the rush shadow of hypocrisy. I pray to God and they send more cops to halt the divine erection. Between God and the world, who fights the truth? but doesn't realize we are not pawns? Each of us will be tested. Art thou now in heaven or hell? Quit fighting the truth before it's too late. We must take on the responsibility of living by searching for the truth. Such is the way of life. Don't play God for a fool. Innocence will suffer. Sure and behold, but try telling that sacrifice story to God. This is America. Take it as it is. This is her left breast's name. This is her rights. Everyone wants to be like Mike. Everyone could care less about the president or the golden eternity sanctity of love. America has become the quintessential Super Bowl of madness, swelling like burgeoning behinds, inoperative brains, slacker tendencies, unholy gaping mouths, failing to reach out to the ones they love. In order to get America into other corridors, she has to shut the door on the old one first. But, as in truth, it becomes a scare, the love of one another, just feeding off of fear. What if for one fleeting moment, baby America fell out of her egg, hit her fragile head, and felt the stinging of her pronounced freedom? It would be like Truman Capote, who called Jack Kerouac a typist, while his own cigarette fingers squeezed himself dry like a Kool-Aid drink box into the American mind. God helps the sick and the dying, punishes the sinners who deny a mere fact of love. Sister, sister, brother, brother, Sodom and Gomorrah. Jesus danced the horror before they bled him dry and stuck him in a cave and escaped the darkness into freedom. So the Bible tells us so, but just as the world goes round, Venus sat on a toilet seat without a sound, pondering, why would anyone have sex with a clown? We get sicker quicker, the vast coolness of disease becoming thicker. Monkey virus traced to polio and AIDS, originated as early as 1930 in Africa. Chicago Tribune, February 2000. Fraught with fear, the elitists blame it all on the immigrants and the queers. I pledge alienation to the fag of the United non-existent States of America. The victims on a sinking ship. Boys in bed with girls barely of age. The advent of cancer. TB, OJ, JFK, and road rage. Barney makes love to Carney on cable while Rosie dresses up in mink and sable. A 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, rush, 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 the transistor king of all media out the door. Frightened happiness, share a good laugh. Aborted fetuses become angels of mercy. A century of love disposed in my lean American years. A century of bewilderment raining down, brown and white. I start to see visions in a foggy sense, little voices that tell me to get lost inside myself. I cry 100 tears for death, 100 fears for breath, 100 years will come and go. It feels like 50 have already passed and raked me over the coals. I got 100 million and a million and 2 different souls all trying to get me to the next place in the sky, but they can never get there because I'm always stuck at square one. Feeling sorry for myself doesn't always work, neither does pity. And charity lives in an Indian church among the hippies, students, and saints. Comes back to haunt me 6 months out of every year. So I say unto thee, old America, everyone has a ghost in their past, a wretched soul, a skeleton they need to hide. But like an old Betty Boop cartoon, mine goes dancing in the mosquito inn to escape from fear. By the dawn's early light, what so proudly we hail, the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars? The critics claim society's gone to hell in a hack, but nobody seems to have a plan to bring it all back. My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. From the lips of a woman standing in the snow, the stark terror of old age, the Java huts on every city block, prune spit, and the whiskey's gone sour. I love you, she says, so the story goes, our children's souvenirs of wasted passiveness. A black rose wilts in the orifice. The shoes of fishermen fry upon the griddle. If wishes were fishes, I would know the words that you seek. Resolute, prodigal, degenerate thought. Jack Kerouac stands in the middle of the room, champagne-eyed and drunk. Was he ever sober? Looking up to his mother, the gem of the ocean, save your eyes, ebbing light is eternal. This land is your land, this land is my land, from the Californias to the New York Islands, from the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters. Wrath of accidents, crazy as it seems, America still crawls on her hands and knees. Past the taxi terrorists, the big city bosses making deals in the back rooms, the homeless selling their babies for a bite to eat. We give thanks for the wrong reasons, spending money on selfish people during the Christmas season when all they do is throw avocados back at you and gripe for the things they really wanted. How humanless we've become. Everything is bleeding, my hairline receding in the middle of my years. I died some time ago and became alien. What is wrong with me? My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride, from every mountainside. Here's to the state of 1999. Keep on trucking, baby, keep on trucking, baby. In order to get your life into other corridors, you have to shut the door on the old one first. I died some time ago and became myself. It's the end of the century as we know it, and what do you have to show for it? I died some time ago and became America. God bless America, a land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. To the Republicans for which it stands, one nation under God, split open like a pea pod, testing by some scientists to see if we as a nation can swallow it whole, or the land of the free and the home of the brave. Play ball!
Cool, man.
How long was that?
10 minutes.
Yeah, that's flying straight through too.
Cool,
I think that was long too, but I think the other two will be shorter.
man. Alright, well, I'll start bouncing these out and I'll pack it up.
Yep.
I want to hear that first one again. Strong poem.
Oh, you mean in translation?
Yeah, I'm gonna just play the mix I have. Make sure it sounds good.
Actually, I like that one too. What did you think of the other two? Well, I know the other one was long, so I'm not going to read it, but what did you think of the
In
other one?
translation,
Yeah, it's some good parts.
strangely queer and smashing lumber inside my slumber, enveloping, cloaking, embracing my worst nightmare. Oh, wispy hum in the night sky. I look to the west, the stars wither and die. Oh, wispy hum in the night sky. I look to the west, the stars wither and die. In pieces, they fall like heart's tiny space. I look to the east, the terror etched in my face. Many moons she is passing through. Stopping before me, waving like golden brown wind blowing inside, glowing like it does. When doors open, they creak. Doors shut, they slam. Oh, mother, my sky, I become you. Oh, mother, my sky, I become you. I am the flower you pick. I am the grass that grows. I am the songbird that sings at the top of his throat at 3:56 a.m. while it is nearly 2 a.m. where you are.
Okay.
But nobody knows when the time stops. When the clock keeps ticking. When the clock stops ticking. When the
Okay, who's this? Oh, I don't even know who the hell this is.
In translation, strangely queer and smashing lumber inside my slumber, enveloping, cloaking, embracing embracing my worst nightmare. Oh, wispy hummed in the night sky, I looked to the west, the stars wither and die. Oh, wispy hummed in the night sky, I looked to the west, the stars wither and die. In pieces they fall, my heart's tiny space. I look to the east, the terror etched in my face. Many moons she is passing through, stopping before me, waiting